Hey everyone, we are Britt and Drea from motherhoodalliance.com, and we are excited to welcome you to a 4-episode series with Dr. Matt Buch, a doctor of physical therapy, board-certified orthopedic specialist, and the owner of Total Pursuit Physical Therapy and Performance based out of De Pere, Wisconsin. Dr. Matt works with active people of all kinds, from athletes who love to train hard to parents who simply want to run around with their kids without dealing with constant aches and pains. But what really sets him apart is his belief that pain isn't something you just live with. So if you've ever been told to rest more, stretch more, or chalk it up to getting older, he is really passionate about challenging that mindset. His approach focuses on uncovering the root cause so that you can move better and feel stronger for the long haul. Dr. Matt creates customized treatment plans that often combine hands-on techniques like dry needling, cupping, and joint manipulation with strength training, movement coaching, and realistic habit shifts that actually fit your life. It's not just about getting you out of pain, it's about keeping you active long term. And outside the clinic, he's an avid bow hunter, climber, outdoor enthusiast, husband, and dad to 2 young boys, so he truly understands the value of being able to move well and keep up with the life that you love. We can't wait for you guys to get to know him. Hey everyone, welcome back to the podcast. We're excited for episode number 3 with Dr. Matt. Welcome back, Dr. Matt.
Thank you. Glad to be here again.
Yeah, I love having multiple episodes because we can cover multiple topics from different lenses. And today we're going to be talking primarily about running. So if you guys are just tuning into this episode, this is the first one that you're jumping onto with Dr. Matt. Make sure you head back and listen to the first 2 because the first one really does apply to everybody. We talked about why rest and stretching aren't always fixing the problem, how sometimes injuries or pain are stemming from somewhere else, and as a PT, how he kind of puts on his detective hat to figure that stuff out. And then in our last episode, we talked a lot about knees and low back and why those are common problem areas and how to kind of overcome that. We also talked about CrossFit, HIIT, high impact, stuff like that. Today, we're going to be talking about running. This is a huge thing, and this is such a great exercise because it gets us outside. Like, we all need to be outside more in today's age. But why is it that so many people do get injured with running?
Probably because we live in Wisconsin and we're indoors for like 6 months, and then everyone's like, "Woo, let's go run!" as soon as the first good day hits. I think, especially in an area where yes, there are some people that run all year round here. There's some people that love, winter running in the snow. Some people run treadmills. But I think what ends up happening is either people haven't run for a while and they want to pick up where they left off last season, or they were maybe a runner in high school, college. We see a lot of clients here who were high school and collegiate runners. They started a family. They kind of put all of that on the back burner, and then they've jumped back into it. And I think it's important to know that past athletic history does not necessarily equal current athletic readiness. So I think a lot of people...
Say it again for the people in the back, because
that's right.
I think
exactly.
A lot of people really struggle with the mindset piece around that. They struggle with racing themselves. So
yeah, and your tissues are going to adapt to whatever stimulus you put on them on a regular basis. So if we haven't been running for an extended period of time, over the winter or, since college, all of a sudden you're asking your body to do things that it's not ready for. If you're a runner, you probably know this, but every single stride that you take is putting about 5 times your body weight through that stance leg with every impact. So if this is not something that you have built up and maintained, that's a pretty big stimulus for your body to take on all of a sudden, especially if you go out and do, multiple miles on your first run, because that's where you left off at the end of the season last year. Your body just doesn't work like that. It takes a while to build up that tissue tolerance again.
Okay, so let's assume somebody listening to this is somebody who either is going to start running for the very first time, or maybe they've run in the past, they've taken at least, let's just say 6 months off, or maybe they haven't ran in 10 years. What type of exercises should they be doing in their workouts now to prepare their body for that load that you just talked about?
Absolutely. So strength training is going to be the number one thing that they're going to want to focus on. So once again, going back to, 5 times your body weight being impacted through your leg every single time that you hit the ground when you're running, you want to make sure that your body can start to tolerate that. So, resistance training with dumbbells, barbells, whatever it is, going through, your squats, your lunges, your heel raises, all of these lower chain exercises that are going to build up your body's strength and tolerance. The next thing that they want to be focused on is more what we would call plyometric movements, or just kind of quick, rapid movements that are going to really build up your tissue's tolerance to that repetitive impact. So starting to do double leg little ankle hops, single leg ankle hops, box jumps, hopping from side to side, forward, backward, just really building up your body's capacity and building up these tissue tolerances. I feel like a lot of times people skip these steps and they just kind of dive right into their run. They walk out their front door and hit the pavement. And unfortunately, a lot of times your body is just not ready for that.
Do you feel like it would be beneficial for someone who's just starting out to see a PT prior to starting running, even if they don't have pain or anything going on, just to kind of have their form evaluated and just make sure that their body is ready?
Yeah, I would say that you want to see a sports specific or a running specific PT, because not every PT is a runner. So they may not see a lot of runners. They may not do a lot with running form. So if you can find someone that specializes in that, or if that's a high volume of the clients that they see, at least doing a consult to say, okay, where are things likely to break down? Where am I weak? Where are my movement faults? All of these things that can be revealed through a full evaluation can be really, really enlightening to show, all right, these are the things that I want to be working on to prepare myself to get into running or get back into running and minimize that risk of an injury that's just going to sideline you.
For sure. So when somebody decides, so if they feel like they're ready, let's say they come and see you, they get some evaluation, they've been working on strength training, now they're ready to add that high impact in, because running is high impact, right? Are there any tools that you recommend that people are using, whether it's something like an app on their phone? I've heard of using like cadence apps to like help keep their feet in a certain type of cadence, but also a ton of people would automatically put in earbuds and start listening to music or a podcast. Is that a pro or con when you're really getting started and you really want to be able to listen to your body? Talk us through kind of technology and how it can be used when out on the road.
Yeah, so we'll definitely use cadence apps. I think adjusting somebody's cadence can be really beneficial if they're having, knee pain, if they're dealing with shin splints, whatever it is. I don't normally do that right out the gate, because if somebody's just starting running, if they're just getting into the sport, I really try to not overcomplicate things. And I think especially runners, if you've been a runner for a long time, runners can be very analytical. They can really dive into the minutia of their cadence, of course, their pace, the footwear that they're using, all of this kind of stuff. For someone who's just getting into it and they're like, I just want to do this for health reasons, I want to get back into it a little bit, I think overcomplicating it can just lead to a lot of confusion and can almost discourage somebody from just going out and enjoying a run. So I think there's 100% a time and a place for apps and technology and stuff like that, not for somebody who is just starting out running. What I would recommend is that they use a protocol that's going to help them build up their tolerance through what we would call graded exposure. So for example, for people that we are helping just get into running, or they've been out of it for a long time, we'll start doing some intervals where they're running for a certain period of time, walking for a certain period of time. Over the course of weeks and months, the amount of walking comes down, the amount of running goes up, and that really helps people build up their tolerance to it without going overboard and finding themselves in an injury position that's going to set them back.
Okay, you mentioned shin splints, so I want to circle back to that. What is happening with shin splints and how do you overcome them?
So shin splints is a issue where some of the tissue in the front of your shin or the front of your leg actually starts to become very irritated. It occurs because the muscles in the front of the leg are not strong enough to decelerate your foot as you're coming through. A lot of people will say, don't ever heel strike when you run. That's not necessarily true, because some people can heel strike and run just fine. For somebody that has an issue with shin splints, where they're heel striking and then their foot is coming down and slapping, generally that's going to cause some irritation in the front of the shin. That might be a person that we're going to put on a cadence and really try to adjust their stride length to avoid that slapping motion and avoid overworking the muscles in the front of their shin. So what that means is that we're actually going to try to increase the speed at which their feet are hitting the pavement, which is going to shorten their stride out a little bit. So it's going to feel like they're almost pitter-pattering a little bit more, but that's going to take a lot of stress off of the tissue in the front of the shin.
I did PT quite a long time ago, and I was working with a running PT, and I was using a cadence app. And I will tell you, when I was trying to shorten my stride, because I was a pretty bad heel striker, it messed up my breathing, because you have to almost have to learn how to breathe again based off your new pace. So it was a learning experience. Yeah. So just a heads up. I mean, you make it sound really easy, but also this is something where if you're getting form evaluated and you're making changes that are going to long-term benefit you, there is some short-term pain in the process of trying to relearn it all.
Your pace and your times are going to change a little bit before your cardio system really starts to adapt to that. It'll come back, but you might be a little frustrated at first.
Yeah, for sure. Now, as somebody's getting more into running, oftentimes people want to sign up for a race because that gives them that motivates them, right? Holds them accountable, gives them something to work toward, gets them out on the road, gives them a training plan typically. But from what I've seen oftentimes is runners don't stretch, and as soon as they start running more, their strength training goes down. Is that something, if their strength training goes down, is that something that can lead to injury, or is it because they're doing running and they've set up their foundation, now they're running because those muscles are used to it, there's really not that much chance of injury? Walk us through, how can somebody balance all of this? And is it really a bad thing to strength train less if you're following a kind of a big running plan?
So it's not necessarily a bad thing to strength train less, but you still want to strength train. So if we're going back to the stretching example, a lot of runners are bad at stretching, right? We were talking about this where, you get up in the morning, you take your shot of espresso, you run out the front door, you're going, you get back home, and then you head straight to the shower and then go to work. So there's not a lot of recovery time in there. Stretching is great. I love stretching. I think it's great. A lot of times the cause of the tightness that you're feeling, and we touched on this in a previous episode, but I'll just reiterate it here, is that the muscle that feels really tight is just not strong enough or adapted enough to tolerate the stimulus that you're putting on it. So for example, let's go for runners, let's talk about your calf, right? So a lot of people, they feel like they got to keep stretching their calves out because their calves get really tight when they run. What's probably going on is your calf is getting fatigued and breaking down, and then it's getting overused. And then as a result, your body is tightening it back up to try and protect the muscle and protect the joints that the muscle surrounds. So really what we want to be doing is doing a good amount of strength training for that calf. Now, in terms of frequency and everything like that, there's a good amount of research out now that in order to maintain strength, you need to hit that muscle with a strength training stimulus about once a week. So if we're able to do that twice a week, along with running, 4 other days per week, 3 to 4 other days, if that's your priority, then that should be adequate to allow you to continue to run, not spend too much time strength training, because we all have a finite amount of time, right? We don't have the luxury of being able to do everything in terms of strength training, running, all of the recovery stuff as well. But it is still important, so we need to figure out a way to work that into your...
This is something that, I wrestled with a lot when I was doing long distance running, is it's the value of it, but also you don't have time for everything. So I think that is helpful. It's almost kind of counterintuitive in your brain though too, when with the calf example, it's well, every time I'm going running, I am working my calves. Isn't that strengthening my calves? What do you mean? Now I'm basically working them out 5 days a week, right? So it is counterintuitive, but it is a different type of strengthening than doing the running exercise. So I appreciate you kind of breaking that down. What are some of the most common injuries you see happening with runners? I know there's IT band syndrome. There tends to be a lot with the knees. What else? What are some of the most common injuries that you're seeing? And then why don't you give us some tips for those?
Yeah, so knee pain 100% is the most common thing that we see in runners. Sometimes it's, an acute injury, some type of a sprain. A lot of times it's an overuse thing. just people kind of getting a little too hot and heavy into their running regimen before their body's ready for it. A lot of times it is stemming from, issues in other parts of the body. So for example, knee pain a lot of times can be very associated with that IT band syndrome. Let's say your hip is a little bit weak, all of a sudden your knee starts to collapse in just a little bit because your leg starts to cross over midline when you're striding. That's a natural compensation that your body is going to make for hip weakness. Now your knee is being stressed in a new way. Your IT band is also being stressed around your hip and being overstretched as that happens. And then you start to get kind of those things in conjunction with each other. So what we would want to look at is we really want to look at what does your single leg strength look like? What does your stability look like? How are you able to move through different planes of motion? And what do we need to adjust and build up in order to improve your tolerance? So once again, going back to your previous point, when we think about, okay, well, if I'm running, I'm using my hips, I'm using my quads, I'm using all of these different areas of my body, why isn't that just strengthening it up? Your body really craves a lot of different types of stimulus. So your body will get used to a certain stimulus, for example, running. It's going to find the most efficient way to do that. Okay. So unless you're challenging it in new ways, you're not going to start to build up that strength in those muscle groups unless you specifically hit them in a little bit of a different way than what your body is doing when it's running. So what we see a lot of times is people come in, they have knee pain, all of a sudden on that same side they have a lot of hip weakness, and they didn't even realize it because their body has compensated for it, and that compensation has started to lead to the hip pain. So until we actually address that root cause, which is weakness up in the hip, which is causing some form changes, which is causing stress around the knee, it's not going to improve itself just by continuing to run and hoping that it strengthens itself up and it works its way out.
Yeah, and I'm sure a lot of people, when they start feeling these types of pains, hopefully they come and see someone like you, but also it can be frustrating because you almost have to take a step back in your training plan and go back to the foundations, and that can be really hard to do.
It's especially for runners, so many runners, especially around here, we have such a short period of time to hit all of your running goals, do the races that you signed up for. You're on a specific training program. It is really hard to cut back on that and say, okay, I need to just take a step back so I can address this issue. And I think so many times people just really try and push through and hope it works itself out. And unfortunately, usually that's the way longer route of going through something than if they would have just said, all right, we're going to pump the brakes for a week or two, just let things calm down, build this up, and then we're going to kind of progress right back into where we were. And to be totally honest, it usually doesn't derail people's training that much. We're able to keep them running. We're able to keep them doing the things that they want to do. I almost never pull people out of running completely unless, they're dealing with an injury that is going to seriously impact them in the future if they don't stop running. We're talking a bone stress injury or something like that can really become a problem unless you completely take away the stress and the stimulus from it. But for the vast majority of people, we're able to keep them running, we're able to keep them training. We just need to modify how they're doing that while we rehab this injury alongside of it.
Well, let's finish out by twisting it to more of a positive piece, right? Not worrying about the injuries, but let's say training is going really well. What are your tips for becoming a faster runner?
So let's say you're, feeling really good. Your training is continuing to move along. You're not dealing with anything, and now you're just strictly working on improving your times, right? What we want to do then is start to vary how you're using your weekly runs to kind of change the stimulus on your body and start to build your cardiovascular endurance in different ways. So then, rather than strictly going for runs, we're going to start doing some shorter duration sprint workouts. We're going to start doing some intervals, really elevating your heart rate, taxing your nervous system, getting your body used to that higher intensity stimulus. And then one day a week, we might do, a really long duration, slower paced, more steady state run in order to kind of change your body's ability to adapt and to do these things, we need to give it a different stimulus. And so really pulling these different types of training into a weekly regimen is how we do that. And then from there, we modify and progress the intensity within each of those different types of training.
Yeah, and I think there are a lot of running plans out there now that probably incorporate some speed work into it. Do you have any resources that you can think of that would just be helpful for our audience to look into for themselves for running?
Yeah, so I have a buddy out in Fort Collins, Colorado. He actually has a PT clinic out there. They're called Up and Running Physical Therapy. Their blog and their podcast are fantastic. They pretty much strictly treat runners, and so everything they do is built around running, how to rehab from injuries, injury prevention tips, how to improve performance. I've been reading through a bunch of his stuff recently, and it's fantastic information. So Up and Running Physical Therapy, Fort Collins, they have a lot of great information.
At your clinic, how do you help runners? What are some offerings that you do?
We see two different types of people. We see people who are dealing with an injury, and then people who really just want to prevent an injury in the first place. So if we're dealing with somebody who has an injury, we're going to figure out where the root cause of that injury is. It may not even be local to the spot that you're having pain, but we're going to take you through all of these different assessments, figure out what that is, and then figure out how we build up your tissue tolerance alongside with continuing to work you through your running program that you're doing right now. For people who just want to avoid an injury, what we do is we start with a consult. We'll have you come in, and then we're going to take you head to toe through different strength assessments, movement analyses. We're going to see where some of these weak links are in your body that could potentially cause an injury down the road. And we're going to come up with a plan to help you mitigate those injury risks by addressing any of these weak links that we find in the clinic.
I love the idea of being proactive.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So that's really awesome. Again, can you share your website with us?
I can. It is totalpursuitpt.com. Anybody that we would see for a running analysis or injury prevention assessment, we always start with a free phone consult just to make sure that this is going to be a good fit for you. So there's no obligation with the phone consult. We're happy to talk through, exactly what our process looks like, get to know you, understand what your goals are, and really make sure that this is going to be a good fit for you before you actually come in and invest your time in that.
All right. Well, you guys listening, we have one more episode with Dr. Matt where we get to pick his brain a little bit more. It's going to be all about dry needling, kind of who it's for, how it works, all these kind of basic questions. We love to have these kind of 101 type episodes so that people can just really feel informed and empowered and maybe not be scared if there's some fears around something like dry needling. So we're excited to come back with that one next.
If you enjoyed this episode, would you consider leaving a rating or review or sharing it directly with a friend who could benefit from the information? We know that you're a busy mom or caregiver, and our goal is to make your life easier by bringing tips and tricks directly from experts into your earbuds. By sharing this episode with someone you love, you can play a critical role in helping to make their life easier as well. We appreciate your time and thank you for being a part of the Motherhood Alliance family.